Cool. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first Ignite developer meeting or office hours, whatever you prefer. Today is the 5th of August, 2019, and we're going to have a lot of fun in this meeting, seeing how we can make Ignite better and how to start contributing, how to use Ignite in various ways, and top tips and also use case requests from the community. Cool. So there's a couple of logistics. We have the Weworks Ignite mailing list, a Google group, which you can join to get right access to the meeting notes. And there, please add yourself to the attending list, your name and company if you prefer. We're going to host these meetings every Monday. It's for me in Finland time, it's 6 p.m. UTC, it's 3 p.m. And I think Pacific, it should be 8 a.m., right? Perfect. And do we have other meta stuff? We have a Slack channel in the Weworks community Slack called Ignite. Simply, and please join there. We have different discussions and feature requests, and also support if needed. Yeah. Anyone else? Do we have any more meta topics to say also in the recorded call before getting started?
Well, we do obviously have the repository where the code is hosted at on GitHub. And there's an issues tracker as well, and PRs and everything. So that's also for feature requests and improvements.
Perfect. Then let's continue to, and yes, to present who's talking. I'm Lucas Källström. I'm from Finland, going to university now this fall. Previously, I've been doing a lot of stuff in the Kubernetes landscape for 3-4 years, about being SIG cluster lifecycle lead with some other folks, and for a couple of years doing kubeadm and similar projects. Also, for fun, ported Kubernetes to ARM. So that's like how I all got started into the cloud native landscape, and I really enjoyed it so far. And yeah, also chairing the meeting is Dennis.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Dennis Martinen. I'm also from Finland and also going to university this fall. And I'm mostly a hobbyist programmer and done a lot of systems programming with various programming languages, and now have entered the cloud native space with the help of Lucas, and now primarily coding Ignite.
Yeah, and we met in the military while doing our mandatory service this previous year, or 2018 to 19. With us, we also have a couple of other folks. Daniel is helping with the logistics. Daniel and Stacy are helping with the logistics.
It looks like Daniel's typing something right now.
Yes, I was sort of taking notes. Yeah, Simon is having a meeting in this room as well, so if you hear somebody else talking. Yes, I'm community manager, work for Weworks, and I just help communities like the Flux community, Scope community, and others to stay up and running. And here I'm just helping with the logistics, and together with Lucas and Dennis set up the documentation site for Ignite. I'll link that as well.
Stacy, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
So this is Stacy. I'm a community manager also at Weaveworks, just helping to run things in the background here.
And I guess I'll go. My name's Lee. I've been in the Kubernetes community for a little bit, so I know some of you. If I don't know you, come say hi to me. I like meeting people and being helpful. And I do work with all these wonderful folks at Weave. It's been true for the past couple of months in developer experience. So, hi.
What's got next?
Yeah, Roberta, Fabrizio, someone, Chanwit?
Jump in. Hi, my name is Roberto Rojas, and I work for Aqua Security. I've been with Aqua for about a month already. Before that, I was working for financial companies. I was a consultant for many years. I've been doing development for 20 plus years. So I've gone all the way from C++, C++, Java, Node.js, Ruby, you name it. I did a little bit of contribution on the COPS project in Kubernetes. I did some ARM stuff locally, and I took advantage of all the stuff that Lucas has done. So I love kubeadmin. On Aqua side, we are using, we're planning to use Ignite or Footloose and Ignite to create like an easy way to spin up the Kubernetes clusters and and configure them in different ways so that we can run some of the Kubench tests or security tests. So that's me in a nutshell. Hi everyone.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's good. My name is Tanvit. I just started doing something around Ignite. I was actually I was a Docker Swarm maintainer for back 2 years, 2 or 3 years ago, and now I'm doing stuff around Kubernetes. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I thought was really interesting, Shanwei, was your VK Ignite repo.
Yeah.
And, we actually have an awesome MD in the Ignite repo that I think that would be great to PR a link to if you wanted to do that. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Take a look. Okay.
Yeah, I thought this project was really interesting. Just using virtual kubelet to take pod definitions and run them as Ignite VMs on a Kubernetes node. So.
Yeah.
Fabrizio Lubomir, maybe?
I can introduce myself. I'm Fabrizio Pandini. I work in C Cluster Lifecycle. I recently joined VMware, and I'm interested in looking at Ignite for understanding better the networking model, and if it can solve some of the annoying problem that we have with Docker locally, using for test development and end-to-end test and small environment, small Kubernetes clusters.
Yeah, we've been collaborating for a long time with Fabrizio and Lubomir in C Cluster Lifecycle, and one of the key drivers when we started this project was to solve these kind of issues of getting real virtual machines really fast for cluster lifecycle similar things too. Cool. Lubomir?
Hello, this is Lubomir. I work for VMware. I started in Kubernetes around the summer of 2017. I saw the message from Lucas today and I joined the meeting. I don't have any particular agenda yet because I haven't looked at the project, but maybe we can think of something like Fabrizio explained earlier.
Yeah, and Ben couldn't join today, the author of Kind, but we have some work in progress to make it make it work with that too. Michael?
Maybe Michael's not here.
Yeah, maybe.
Or not able to speak on the mic, but
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, though. We're glad you're here with us. Yeah, Stefan could do an introduction. I don't know if you're, yeah.
Hi, I'm Stefan Prodan. I work for Weaveworks as well. And for Ignite, I'm interested in the GitOps story, and I'm here to help from the Flux perspective, how we can build this right. Thanks.
Yeah, so with regards to the GitOps thing, it's I mean, we have the GitOps functionality in Ignite to be able to declaratively specify in a Kubernetes style way, but without depending on Kubernetes because of the chicken and egg problem, basically. Like I need to spin up Kubernetes to get used to Ignite, which I use to spin up Kubernetes. So so that's why Git makes a lot of sense for that, and we're going to see how we can build some generic code around this to easily create Git-backed infrastructure applications as part.
Cluster API has the same issue, right?
Yes, Cluster API may also be something that could utilize parts of this.
Mm.
I can go next.
Yep.
You guys hear me? Hi, I'm Tomo Nakahara. I run the developer experience team at Weaveworks. So thank you to everybody for coming from all these different time zones to start this conversation. We asked the team, and thanks to Daniel for leading this, to have weekly meetings for now, because basically, yes, this is the last month that we have with Lucas and Dennis before they go off to university. So we wanted to test it out to see what the interest was and the commitment. So thank you to everybody very, very much from all these time zones for joining us today. I look forward to hearing where this conversation goes. Thanks.
Cool. And lastly, we have Dieter Reuter. He is unfortunately in some really important meeting, so he couldn't join via Zoom. But he wrote in the docs that he's working on Ignite Firecracker for ARM64, and he's using Ignite currently on Packet.net servers for both testing and development, and have some project he's hopefully gonna share with us soon. In that area. So that's all exciting. Very well. Do we have any questions at this stage, or should we proceed? Perfect.
I'm excited for whatever you're demoing here.
Yeah, so I thought I'd just start with sharing my screen, and there we go. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. So just a quick walkthrough of the different resources that exist. So first and foremost, we have the repo, and at the moment it lives under the Weaveworks org. In the future, we will see. I mean, the purpose of it is to be a really, how to express it, community-driven project and a neutral piece of code to make this VM layer a bit more approachable for those in the container world. And yes, so here we have like the blog where we announced this now like a month ago. a lot of different text about how it works and what you can use it for. I'm gonna show this screencast, basically demo live. Hopefully that will work while doing screen sharing on Zoom. And here we have an architecture diagram. I'm gonna go through this a bit later. We had Joe Beda do Thank God It's Kubernetes session on Ignite, and really deep dive, like it was 1 hour and 40 minutes or something on how Ignite works. So that's a really good resource if you're interested in hearing Joe breaking down all of the different pieces of it. And some guides and more similar stuff. Great. So that's one. And then we have a docs folder here, and you can either check them out like this, but maybe the preferred way is to go to ignite.readthedocs.io. So here we have a auto-generated site with using ReaderDocs, which is an awesome project, to automatically render these Markdown documents in a really nice way. So all the way from like installation guide, how to use it declaratively, different dependencies, and FAQ is here. We also have the reference of the API types. So you have all those kind of, if you wonder about something with the syntax, here like all the commands if you unsure about anything, and lastly the change logs. So there we go. So that's like a really short on where to find resources. As said, we have the mailing list here, the agenda which you have found, and in here we have the Ignite channel in the Weave users Slack. Cool. So in the agenda we have first the quick demo, then we're going to talk about the roadmap and ask for requests, and then get on to how to contribute. So in the project we like as anywhere else on GitHub, we're using issues to track different bugs and features and other milestones. We have here, we're aiming to release 0.5 during maybe end of this week or the next, hopefully. And if you have anything you want to contribute, the flow, which we'll look into a bit later, is basically pull requests. As we have got a lot of PRs already, which is really nice, from about 15 different community contributors. So that's really awesome. Cool. Any questions so far, or should I proceed to run Ignite here on my laptop? Okay. Well then, first I'm gonna quit Slack to free up some RAM. Then let's go over here. So clear, and now I'm gonna. So can you see my screen? Is this readable?
Yeah.
Cool. So then I'm gonna make myself the root user, and yes, this is a known problem, but at the moment you need to be root when executing Ignite. However, as we're gonna look into in the roadmap and next sections, is we're hoping to remove this requirement really soon. It's basically because if you try to mount something, it's basically gonna say that you need to be root. So as we're mounting the the stuff for Firecracker to use, we have this requirement at the moment. Yeah, Ignite PS. Oh well. First, had some development work in progress there. So we have the latest release, 0.4.2, and the Ignite command is here. So it really, by design, mimics the Docker UX, so it's familiar to normal tools, and so that you hopefully should be able to pretty much more or less swap out the Docker. Like if you have a Docker run command, you should be able to swap out to make it Ignite run, and it should still work the same, but for a VM, a real VM. So the basic introduction is like this. We have there we go. There we go. So what you feed to Ignite is basically an OCI image. So an OCI image is the standard for Docker or container images. And we, instead of using some VDI or VMDK or QCOW images that are the standards of today's VM infrastructure, we use the container format popularized by Docker to package a VM root file system. So instead of using some of these VDI files or similar, we basically, when doing Ignite run or using Ignite, you instead feed it a Docker image. So this can be something from Docker Hub or something you've built yourself. And this is then combined with a kernel, which is another Docker or OCI image. Here we have a default 419 one. There's basically one thing you need to have in your, that is required to have in your container, and that is sbin init. Because when you boot, when you have a container used for the building format, and then when you actually boot the VM, you need some kind of init system which boots all of it. And here we have some pre-built images. So for example, the Ubuntu one, we see that we start from, and this is the way you build images. You start from some Docker Hub image, for example, Ubuntu. You add the packages you think are useful. Here, the only package we have to install basically is systemd, and the other are like nice to have ones. And then we set password to root for a good demo, but maybe not for production usage. Anyways, let's go ahead and do this. So I do Ignite run. And now the pre-built image you see here is called Weaveworks Ignite Ubuntu. And then we can see what kind of customizations do we want here. We can specify this declaratively. We can specify CPUs. Well, let's say 2 CPUs. There we go. And we have a default RAM size of 0.5 GB. That's fine. We can expose ports, set the size of the root file system, enable SSH. We're going to enable SSH, and this generates a new public and private key pair. So with no further ado, I'm going to do Ignite run with this image. Now, under the hood, it's doing like a Docker pull for Ignite Ubuntu. It gets that. The root file system is 200 megabytes. And now it has been imported into a Firecracker compatible format, which is a block device. And then we import the kernel, which is also an OCI image. And that's smaller. That basically has the kernel and some modules and similar. It combines these and creates a VM and starts it. And the funny thing about this is that it starts it and it's used as Docker. But before we do that, we can see with Ignite PS that it's running. It has an IP address. This one, 2 CPUs, half a gig mem. Everything's all right there. Using normal Docker commands, we can now, for example, attach to this. This one, and this is why we made root. So it's easy to, to log into it using the serial console. And now we're on a VM here. And for context, I'm running Ubuntu on my laptop. So that you need to run Ignite on some Linux system which has KVM, because Firecracker uses KVM. It's basically a KVM implementation. So unfortunately, this can't be done on Macs or Windows, but eventually, as we have some kind of client-server model, you may have a Ignite client running on maybe Mac or Windows, which talks to some other Ignite daemon running on Linux. And to make sure we have, yes.
I could add to that it is technically possible to run Ignite on Windows via the Windows subsystem for Linux. Currently, the kernel they compiled for that is missing some device mapper options, configuration options, and kernel modules that Ignite needs, but they just added support for compiling your own kernel for the Windows subsystem for Linux. So we might also look into building a Windows subsystem for Linux kernel, which includes all the modules that Ignite needs, and that would then enable Ignite on Windows.
Does it work on macOS?
macOS has no support for KVM, as far as I know, so that's a bit difficult. The Windows subsystem for Linux basically virtualizes Linux operating system and kernel, so that's why it's possible. But via macOS, you'd need to have like VirtualBox or something similar with nested virtualization enabled and then run it in there.
Do we have a sample how to do that?
Not yet. I don't have a Mac, so.
I do have several Macs. I mean, if we have some sort of instructions, I'll be happy to look into that. Because I've been trying to do that. That's one of those things that, you know, in our case, we want to be able to run Footloose and Ignite on a Mac, you know, so it's easier for somebody running some of the tests that we need to run. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm running on my other laptop, which has Ubuntu as well, or one of the other boxes I have, or using one of the expensive VMs on Amazon. So that the question I had was, is the requirement coming from Firecracker, or is it an Ignite requirement?
It comes from Firecracker, because KVM is a part of the Linux kernel, and that's the thing that actually performs the virtualization, and Firecracker then tells KVM what to virtualize and does the all the low-level stuff in that area. So that's why Linux is needed, because Firecracker is specifically created to be really small and focused on, focused on especially running Linux.
So in theory, if Firecracker had some sort of extension for Mac, then, you know, it should work. I mean, provided that if somehow Firecracker had something similar to what VirtualBox does on the Mac, where it can fire up VMs.
Yes. So one thing which could be possible, I haven't tried this yet, but like the QEMU project, this one, could be one thing. Like, I haven't looked into this at all, but it could be possible, because this can also do system virtualization, so that we could plug in this into Ignite to do the same thing as Firecracker would do. So basically swapping out Firecracker on Macs to provide the same experience. I don't know if this could do it. Maybe.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, Kibo should have support for Mac and also Hyper-V on Windows. It's pretty universal, but the downside is, of course, that it's quite a large package and includes a bunch of tools and isn't as fast to fire up VMs as Firecracker is.
Yes.
So but then, obviously, if we want to target compatibility, then this would be the way to go there.
So, yeah, we'll see if this is but for now, yes. Basically, if you can get, you can ping me offline later if you need if you have specific questions about how to run on a Mac. But basically, it's create a VirtualBox instance on Mac with nested virtualization enabled. But I don't know what kind of processor or type of Mac you need to have there.
Yeah, I'll ping you, and then we can figure something out.
We have an issue open for Windows subsystem for Linux, but I haven't seen any activity in the latest days. But yeah, that's also interesting. Okay,
yeah,
so
it's a pretty new process to enable or compile those custom kernels with custom flags. So I don't think it has been documented anywhere.
Yeah,
somebody would need to actually look into that first.
Yeah.
But eventually, if we have demand.
So here we can see that we're now inside of the virtual machine. We have this specific kernel that we requested from the OCI image. The IP address is coming from the Docker bridge. We'll get into this in a moment. And then we have 0.5 gig and 2 processors. So that's that. And we can also do SSH if we want, using the public and private key we created. This does not work. Yeah, well, something strange. Right. So there's that. So one of the key things of Ignite is that we don't want to reinvent the world. So that's why we are using the OCI specification as our bundle, and because that also already has the community support for distributing content, basically. And we neither we want to implement something that handles daemons, or like systemd or something. So the first version of Ignite that we had inside of the Finnish military, when we started with this project, Dennis and myself, we ran Firecracker directly using systemd, but that proved to be very hard for a multitude of reasons. So what we ended up was packaging Firecracker inside of a Docker image. So a Docker container actually runs Firecracker to handle, because Firecracker is a long-lived daemon, basically. So that's why we're running it in a container. And this also, now we get networking kind of for free, because we either use CNI or the default Docker network. And so we see when the container started up, we have a small component called Ignite Spawn, whose job is basically to spawn Firecracker with the right arguments based on our API. And this also transfers the container, the IP the container had to the VM using DHCP. So, and yeah, because I forgot to show that, but basically here is you can also see the boot process of this virtual machine. That is actually not the same one that I have on my host. Right. So do we have? And yeah, we have Ignite images. Shows that now we have cached this Docker image we have now cached this kernel OCI image, and the next time I run the same command, it's way faster than the first time, because the first time we actually had to download the content from Docker Hub. So, yeah. That's all. Do we have any other specific commands we should show?
Ignite inspect would be one good one.
Yes. So if you want to see...
Quick question, Lucas.
Yes.
Does the Ignite name or the VM name match the Docker supervisor name? So like the Ignite VM's name is late Snowflake. That doesn't match the Docker container, right?
Right. No, it doesn't. Yeah.
The container gets the name Ignite dash and then the ID of the VM. And the late Snowflake, the name Ignite gives to the VM is actually added to the container as a label. So you can retrieve it from there.
So that's why we also use in Footloose, right? Roberto, right?
Yes, and actually, speaking of that, I was looking into that. I forget why, but I had to do something similar to that to get to the. There was a piece of information inside the. I think Ignite. Well, there was a piece of information that I needed, so I was thinking about doing this, like going against. We have the box name is on the Ignite side, but the Docker side has this combination. So I had to go on one of them to get the ID of the other one to jump back and get the information I need. So I think is in the case of if I want to know like if it's running or not, because the way that at least the PR that I submitted last week, the way that I'm doing this, I'm just doing a log. And, and the log itself is not necessarily going to tell me if it's running or not. So it's kind of like a false positive to some point.
Right, right.
But anyway, it's one of those interesting things. I know that we have at least 2 tickets for Ignite, one to filter and one to find out if the VM is running. So I'll probably jump in on one of those at some point and fix it so that now we can refer to it from Footloose.
Yeah, so one thing that I actually forgot to tell about, but it ties in perfectly to this, is that we have now recently we have an Ignite inspect. It's in the 0.4 release version. But anyways, Ignite inspect. So you can inspect a VM or a kernel or image, and you give it the ID or the name, and out comes JSON or YAML. And this is the API. It's Kubernetes style, but it just reuses the Kubernetes API machinery to be consistent with CRDs and a lot of the large ecosystem around it. And here we can see this is a VM, metadata, UID, name, when it was created. The spec is, I said it should have 2 CPUs, default disk size. Here's the OCI image we're using, which was Ignite Ubuntu. SSH was enabled, 0.5 gig of RAM. And here is Ignite populated this with status 2. So this was the specification that was created on the command line. And when it started running, it got status that here's the IP address and it's running. It uses this kind of image, etc. And what you actually can do is Ignite inspect VM and that VM, and then do a JQ on the JSON output to check if it's running. But this should be added as a Docker PS -f format or something. Should be fairly easily doable.
Yeah, we have multiple requests for that already.
Yep. So, but this is a workaround hack in the meantime.
So I have a quick question, and this is this meeting only for Ignite, or will it include Footloose as well, or is Footloose going to have its own meeting?
I don't know exactly. I think whatever makes sense to you, the community. We could Right now, Damien is on vacation, but a week from now he comes back, and then we could talk about it, right? What do you think,
Yes,
Daniel?
let's just invite him to one of the next meetings, and then we can see what we want to talk about there. But I think for today we have on the agenda.
Perfect. Yes, lastly I'm gonna just Ignite stop and this VM so that my CPU doesn't get too hot.
You can also match the VMs and kernel sand images by a prefix of the name. So just type in the first characters to start, stop, remove a VM. And if it's unique, then it's automatically going to detect that. So that's for convenience, so you don't need to copy paste the ID all the time.
Yes. So we have I'm not going to go into this, but we have a guide how to run, for example. So I said Ignite is really good at running Kubernetes clusters, or Kubernetes, individual Kubernetes VMs running kubelets, which form a Kubernetes cluster. And here is a guide for that, how to do it. And actually, when Fabrizio and myself wrote the kubeadm AJ, so Fabrizio and Lubomir has been working really nicely with kubeadm AJ lately, and so with kubeadm you can create Kubernetes clusters, and you have familiar kubeadm init and join commands, and now with the recent release you're able to do join -- control plane thanks to their work. And this guide basically shows how to do that. And the screencast we had in the Kubernetes blog post when we announced this was actually running on top of Ignite VMs. So it's a really fast way. It took like just some seconds to get each VM running. So that's powerful. Right. So, but let's. Or do we have questions at this stage, or should we proceed to roadmap and contributing? We have 12 minutes about left. Cool. So in docs we have generated content which ends up here. As I said, if you're wondering about different things, we have an FAQ, so that might be worth looking at. For example, the difference between Kata containers, gvisor, and Firecracker Containerd and Ignite. And I could quickly touch on this because it's so often asked. So Kata containers, gvisor, and Firecracker Containerd they are running containers, but Ignite is actually running a VM. So there's a difference in the unit that they are working with. So both use OCI images, both use similar things, and the different Kata gvisor and Firecracker Containerd are implementing the Kubernetes runtime container runtime interface, which is the Kubernetes standard of running containers. But Ignite instead could use something like what Chanwit has been working on, the virtual kubelet to implement something similar, but then we actually run a real VM. We don't run containers with added isolation, which these projects give you. So if you're interested in Firecracker, but you want to run normal containers, and with that I mean that you can run like an app like Nginx as your PID1 in the container, then you should check out Firecracker Containerd, which is from the Firecracker team, adding the isolation with Firecracker this way. But if you actually want to run real VMs powering some other hardware like Kubelet or some other system-wide thing, or you have legacy applications which you can't containerize, which was our case in the military, so then you Ignite maybe is the right fit. Cool. And so that's the FAQ. In the roadmap, we have a couple of things, and we should actually update this, but I said that at the moment we're using Docker to run run Firecracker as a daemon. In the future, we want to add containerd support because we started with Docker just because it was the easiest. But by adding containerd support, we can also make Kubernetes support easier, which is what Chanwit is doing. And maybe or CI, better packaging, better API documentation. CSI is the container storage interface, which Kubernetes and a couple of other orchestrators adapt, and the standard there. And we're also hoping to integrate with that for persistent storage. Roberta has been doing awesome work with Footloose, so now we should soon enough be able to remove this from the roadmap and actually put it into the changelog with the new release. Yeah, then ongoing refactoring work is being done. So basically, we're thinking about going into a client server. It's been requested a lot of times in the issues here. Client server. Let's see. Yes, there we go. So we have that kind of stuff, and it will allow us to go rootless too for the client. So we started this work with the 0.5 release, which we're hoping to release soon. So we have now one Ignite command, which is the Docker UX. And then we have Ignite D, which is the daemon part of this. So with Ignite D, it's a long running process which operates on either files on disk in, for example, etc Firecracker manifests. If you know Kubernetes, you might know that the kubelet, the node daemon of Kubernetes, can do the same thing. So you drop a manifest, you drop a file in a specific location, and the kubelet starts it up. Or use GitOps, which we also have screencasts for. So this will, and eventually, with regards to the Mac issue and that kind of stuff, we hope that Ignite will just talk to Ignite D, and Ignite D hosts all of this this functionality instead. So that's shortly about the roadmap. Any questions around this?
I have Footloose questions.
Sorry, what did you say?
Yeah, unfortunately, I only have like Footloose questions, but that we can address those in that meeting.
Yes. And then yes, how to and where to get involved. We're still improving the contributing documentations. We don't have a lot yet here, which we hope to have soon enough. But the way to contribute in this case would be to come to Slack in the Ignite channel, ask for stuff to do, or comment on any of these issues. Say I want to help with this. I've put some of these as help wanted to get them to mark them as these would be good community contributions with a fairly exact scope of this is where to start and this is where to end, and here's the description how to do it. So that's a good way to start. In this meeting is another way. Just speak up if you want to help, and then the actual flow is to fork the repo, normal git flow, git clone it, do a new branch, and send a pull request through GitHub's UI, and then we'll get it in from there. And yeah, do we have any Daniel? Do you have more context stuff I should be saying?
No, I thought it was great. Yeah, are there already any questions regarding getting involved, or did anyone see anything they were interested in working on or looking at, or any other questions?
I'm a little curious about how many more moving parts are necessary for the Containerd integration, because right now we have this single call binary and it depends on all of Docker's functionality. And yeah, it just seems like now there's a lot more orchestration needed in order to get the parts working when talking about building in the Containerd plugin ecosystem. I'm kind of interested to know, like, if we're going to be able to use Containerd's existing snapshotters and things like that, and then just have the trailing execution bits. Yeah, that's kind of what's on my mind. So.
Yeah, good question. So it's going to be, I did a proof of concept of this in the military really quickly, like 10% of the functionality. But so it's doable, and we have a interface for talking to the runtime, and Dennis already did this refactor. So whatever Containerd or something else that implements this interface, so we can run an OCI image, we can inspect it, we can attach to it, etc., or pull, export an image. Whatever that satisfies that interface can be used as Ignite container runtime. So the short answer is implement this interface using the Containerd SDK basically in Go would be the way.
And the little longer answer is you asked about reusing some of Containerd's functionality or most of Containerd's functionality, like the snapshotter. We can reuse any network setup and then the runtime management of Containerd, but we can't reuse the snapshotter due to Firecracker and QEMU and whatever we run as VM backend operating on a block level rather than file level. So we do need to implement our own snapshotter which operates on blocks instead of files. And Firecracker Containerd does have a snapshotter operating on blocks on the block level, but we haven't looked into integration with that yet, as we do want to have in the future, currently it's not shared, but in the future we do want to share the base images via device mapper theme provisioning so that we don't need to duplicate any resources there.
Right. So, but also to be clear, we are already doing the snapshotting to the block devices. That is the same for Docker too. So it's not specific to Containerd in any way. Yeah, we can reuse a great deal, which is all of these things, but not everything, and that's why we have the project. Cool. We're pretty much out of time at the moment. For the next time, we can. So it's next Monday, a week from now. We hope to see you there, and that time we can have maybe some different demos and of the different ecosystem projects. For example, Roberto has Footloose and Chenwit has VK Ignite. I think Dieter is going to have by that time too. And we're hoping to get Kubernetes Kind working well with Ignite. Maybe by that time, maybe not. Any last things before we stop?
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you for joining, and see you in a week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you.